Hello, everyone, and I hope you're doing well. Today's gospel is taken from the third chapter of John's gospel, where Jesus is having this interaction, this conversation with Nicodemus. And today I'd like to just focus on one detail from this dialogue that I find very fascinating. So in his conversation in the gospel today with Nicodemus, Jesus says the following to Nicodemus. He says, "And just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the desert, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life." Jesus here is referencing a very fascinating incident that happens in the book of Numbers, in Numbers chapter 21. At this time, the people of Israel are wandering through the wilderness. They've just been released from the slavery in Egypt, and they're now wandering through the wilderness, making their way to the promised land. And while in the wilderness, they experience different hardships, various difficulties. And what happens in Numbers 21 is that there are serpents, there are snakes that bite the people get sick, and they are dying. And Moses ultimately calls out to God for help, for healing for the people. And God instructs Moses to create something quite interesting as a remedy for these snake bites. God tells Moses to create a bronze serpent and to put it up on a staff or a stick. And anyone who looks upon this bronze serpent will be saved from the effects of the snake bite and will live. Jesus then is comparing his own crucifixion, his own lifting up on the cross, to this bronze serpent that Moses lifted up in the wilderness. And there's some similarities and differences here that Jesus wants us to be attentive of. First, the similarities. That bronze serpent saved people from some sickness, some illness. It restored them to life. So for us too, when we look at faith with Jesus on the cross, we believe in who he is, what he did for us, so we too are delivered from sickness, from the sickness brought about from sin, and ultimately are prevented from dying. But there is a significant difference. Those people in the wilderness with Moses, although they were cured from the snake bites, ultimately went on to die. This entire wilderness generation died before they reached the promised land. But it's very different for us. When we look at Jesus on the cross, Jesus promises us eternal life. He's quite clear about this in John 3:15. Anyone who believes in him will have eternal life. This is the promise that Jesus gives us. And in John's gospel, this is the first time we hear about this gift. Jesus just doesn't cure us from some sickness in a temporary way, but Jesus gives us this gift of eternal life. And this promise of this gift is a great source of hope for us. How today, with all that we're going through, can we take hope and promise in the gift of eternal life that Jesus comes to bring us? Well, perhaps one way we can do this is by remembering some time in our life that was like a foretaste of this gift of eternal life. Can you remember a time in your life, some experience that you went through? Maybe you were with family or friends that was so joyful, so wonderful, some experience of communion that you hoped it never came to an end. This is like a foretaste of the gift of eternal life, where we will be forever with God, with our friends, with our family, with all the communion of the saints in this communion, this community of love and joy that is so wonderful that it will never come to an end. Perhaps to give ourselves hope during this time with all we're going through, we can remind ourselves of such an experience in your life. What was some moment in your life that was so wonderful, so full of joy, that you wish it never came to an end? Remind yourself of this. It's a foretaste of the gift of eternal life that Jesus comes to give us and is a great source of hope for us. God bless you and take care.